Solar Enma is an S-rank yokai of the Enma tribe. He has fire attribute but has no weak element. His attack is lightning slash. His technique is incinerate. His inspirit raises an ally's strength by 2 stages. His ultimate is a 160 power fire attack and a cross pattern on the enemy's grid. Finally, his skill places a fire hazard on whatever tile has the unfortunate fate of being hit by one of his techniques. This is insanity. Fuck me, man. What were they thinking when they balanced this thing? Did they balance it? They sure as hell balanced Bitterbatter. Bitterbatter can only place hazards with his ultimate, and what does charge decently fast, it's still nothing compared to Solar. You can place them every turn if you get lucky. And it's not like he won't do anything if he doesn't use his technique. His stats are super good across the board. He's got equal base attack stats and equal base defense and speed stats. You're always going to build Solar as a mage, but by the way battles work, he won't always use Incinerate. He could use his attack instead, which is one of the best in the game and still has great physical attack anyway. If he guards, you know he isn't taking much of those defensive stats. Let's take a moment to review how hazards work again. They do damage to a yokai when that yokai is on the tile on the turn he is afflicted with a hazard, the yokai finishes the turn while on the hazard, or the yokai walks over the hazard during movement. The damage is calculated as if the damage is a 50 power magic attack. In Solar's case, the damage is fire based. He uses both yokai's spirit stats to the damage calculations. As well as this, the fire hazard debuffs the yokai's defense. This counts as an in-spirit. You know who loves hazards and in-spirits? Batan fucking Q. Batan Q's skill, if you didn't know, locks all inspirited yokai in place. So if you're bad at purifying, tough. You just have to deal with this hazard now. Bonus points if you have a charged soul slip up for even more trapping. If you're thinking you can use this with brutal, think again. Only 2 S ranks allowed. Come back when you drop the brutal, big guy. You could use this hazards as a way to trap for yokai for brutal though. I'd rather use Solar Enma with Batan Q though. Stepping yokai in place after getting hit by an incinerate from Solar Enma and then the hazard with that spray set is not good at all. And if that wasn't bad enough, they gave him a wait timer of 3. 3! You know who else waits 3 turns to move? Squeaky! My god. I also must add that hazards last 10 whole turns, so no matter what happens with Batanku, you'll be hit at least twice if you can't purify quick enough. You can make this worse for your opponent by using a hassle yokai like Snaggly or Winona to make all the yokai's purification minigames harder. Now we get to the items that this thing gets. With the way this yokai's balanced, you think they'd give him fucking 2 item slots, but thankfully he only has 1. With this 1 item slot, you can run really anything you want. The first thing that may come to your mind is a soul gem that changes his technique. Yokai that initially appeared to be good counters to Solar like Soti Bacon, Armsman and Bishamon 10 seem that way because they all take fire damage for basically free. This is immediately shut down by Solar with any of the soul gems that change Yokai's technique. You may think water would be best first, but that also has drawbacks. Other people that realise the Solar may run a sucking soul to counter their bacon may have decided to instead use Snagger Jagger Sweaters, so I'd actually go for an element that isn't countered by any skills. You could run a soul gem to counter popular metal threats that may ruin your team otherwise, such as bringing a Sub-Zero soul to the Chedgekedger or a Space Dust soul for the King Souls. It's very hard to predict what a soul will run though, so most commonly people use Salty Bacon or Armsman anyway, in case he runs any of his other items. He might run a Mythical Ring to give him his damage a straight increase. It's definitely an item that Solar Enma can run. Solar already has decent spirit, so I guess you can make it better with this, but I don't see the point. Especially not when Dumb Cap is a thing. Remember how powerful Dumb Cap boosts are. I can make even yokai with low level techniques like Kaleidoscope more usable. A soul gem is much more valuable than a straight damage buff. Dumb Cap is almost always seen alongside Solar for this reason, but even without him, Solar is still a great source of damage. If you're feeling like a bit of a risk, you can run a Red Rush Soul. If you didn't know, Red Rush Souls give the holder another turn when they get a kill. Hazards do not count for this, so you'll have to get the kill with the initial hit. This is annoying, and personally I don't run Red Rush, but if you can pull it off, it can be devastating to get a double hazard on the opponent's field. You can run a Stealth Soul to make him even more annoying to kill. This can really mess up your opponent, since leaving Solar Enma on the field is usually a horrific thing to do for long periods, and having to play around Stealth Soul can add to the problem massively. With a stupid move timer of 3 turns, you can outrun Brutal as well as suboptimal ultimate charges. If you have a slip up, it becomes even harder to catch him out. There is one drawback however. When we discussed Batan's skill, we said that his skill locks all inspirited yokai in place. I play Magic the Gathering, and I'm very careful with how I word effects of things in order to get across exactly what I mean. I often make mistakes with this, but there's no mistake here. I said all inspirited yokai. This implies that it includes your side, which it indeed does. Have fun, educators and percussionists, we all love you. Which is why Solar can run Sub-Zero Soul to deal with Ted early, as I mentioned earlier. And how have I gotten this far without mentioning you do it? One hazard to turn is bad enough, now imagine 2 or 3. I showcased this in my You Do It video, and it's disgusting how fast hazards can fly onto the other board. Regardless of the red rush and you've got yourself a nightmare. Finally for this section, I don't always have a tank out with Solar. I instead have Solar, a dump cap and a healer. I'd most likely go for Fukurukuju for the revives, unless I'm running Batan Q, in which case Ulteria works as well. Ulteria and dump cap with Stealth Souls can work because Solar usually takes hits well on his own. If you need a tank like Robanya and Spoink and Walden over a healer for that extra support though, go ahead. So after all I've said, you must be thinking to yourself, how do you counter this thing? It seems unstoppable at first glance, but there are ways around it, believe it or not. First off, what I said about Salty Bacon and Armsman being completely useless against alternate technique soldiers is not completely true. See, the souls only change the technique, not the skill. This means that the hazards that Solar hits are still set ablaze, and since the damage is fire attribute, they can take the hazard damage just fine, as long as it somehow lived the preceding waterfall or meteor or whatever. Now what you're all screaming at the screen right now is exactly what I'm going to say. Hazard immunity. Hazard immunity does in fact exist, in the form of Slacks and Jack-O-Ma-san. Jack-O-Ma-san is especially nice since he resists fire. Jack-O-Ma-san and Slacks remove the hazards that stand on at any point, making a great asset against Solar Enma. The main issue is that neither of these yokai can do much damage to Solar. He resists fire, and Jack-O-Ma-san has very little he can do damage-wise against Solar, especially if he has Waterfall. Slacks generally has underwhelming stats and a subpar moveset. These yokai you use when you need to clear up the board and can't wait the extra. Speaking of, weightless souls are nice to have for the extra hazard immunity. I'd only really do it on yokai like Dumbcap with 2 item slots, since giving up an item for something you likely won't see every game isn't the smartest idea. I like a Stealth Soul and Paradise Ball on the cap, but you could definitely slot a Weightless Soul in there somewhere. Finally, Repossessor is always a great asset against yokai like Solar that rely on one move to be good. Repossessor's skill, also called Repossessor for some reason, activates when Repossessor is hit, and stops the yokai that use the move from using that move until Repossessor dies. This is a bit risky as Solar Enma is outspeed by a good amount of yokai, and something else may hit Repossessor first. However, pulling this off can be game changing as his effect stays active as long as he is alive. You can keep him well protected for the rest of the game and Solar can't do the thing that makes him broken anymore. In summary, Solar Enma is the best competitive yokai in Yokai Watch 3 for a reason. No weaknesses, an overpowered skill, overall great skills, and very few counters due to his versatility when it comes to items. His low movement timer makes him incredibly hard to pin down, especially when running Stealth Soul. He loves being paired with Batan Q and snaggling to inconvenience the opponent and knock them in place on a hazard for an extended period. He takes well to a Dumbcap boost, as do all technique users, with him especially so since his hazards are also buffed. He loves You Do It so he can double or triple his hazard output. He can fit on so many teams and battlers ban him often for a reason. Solar Enma is the apex of competitive Yokai Watch 3. So what are your thoughts on Solar Enma? Despite all I've said, I quite enjoy using him. He's the best yokai and he's super fun to use as well. There are so many ways you can use him that I can find a way to put him on most teams. Is there anything obvious that I missed? How do you run Solar Enma? Let me know in the comments and have a good day.